Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Patrick Hartman joins us from Reno, Nevada, where he is General Manager for the Diversified Systems International branch of Technology Design Associates. DSI opened for business in the Northern Nevada and Lake Tahoe areas in 1994. Then in March of 2018, DSI joined forces with Technology Design Associates, which is owned by one of my previous podcast guests and friend, Ron Wanless, enabling them to better service all of their clients across Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, and Arizona. Patrick is the guy, along with another former guest and friend, Jamie Briesmeister, who recruited me to help launch the CEDIA Business Xchange conference back in 2014. As far as conference planning goes, I'm a very good magazine editor. But despite my lack of real contribution to that project, I still cherish that experience because of the relationships it helped me develop. And I've been able to keep up with Patrick and Jamie and everyone we worked with, including Ron, since then at expos and buying group meetings. And I know that Patrick in particular has a great passion for solving business challenges in the professional home technology integration industry. I'm happy to have him on the podcast to share his stories and tech insights. Patrick Hartman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. Last week when we were setting this up, we chatted on the phone a bit, and you mentioned how you're headed out to the lake, meaning Lake Tahoe, for some client visits. I immediately recalled how much you love razzing me on Facebook whenever I'm on a work trip or vacation. I believe the line you always use is, "Don't you ever work?" I'll have you know that I have 0 vacations planned this summer. I can't brag about that. It's not a great thing. All of our money has gone toward my high school daughter's trip to France. So we're kind of laying low this summer. So I have to say, when I hear you're going to the lake and calling it work, I have to kind of question that a little bit. But
yeah, there's some work in play there. There's no doubt.
There you go. You live in a beautiful place, and I can't criticize that you've chosen well there, sir. But speaking of free time, one of the things that I love watching about you, and we'll get into the business and the tech conversation here, but I think to get you to know you better, I couldn't go without mentioning right out of the gate about your hobby and passion for extreme trail obstacle courses, I guess is the general term, like Tough Mudders and Spartan races. I love watching that stuff. You tried to get me involved, and I don't have the guts to actually do it, or maybe the stamina. How did you get involved in that stuff? Remind me how that all got started, because I think people would love to know that about you right out of the gate here.
Yeah, so it's known as obstacle course racing and then trail running. So they kind of all fall in that same category. Oh, God, it's been probably 2015 or so. I was challenged by a friend of mine to go do a Tough Mudder up at North Star. It's one of the toughest in the country because of their elevation change. And I'm like, how hard could it be? You know, it's just run up a mountain, get muddy, you go through some obstacles, and you have a beer at the end of the run. So how hard could it be? Well, I didn't realize, even though I live at an elevation, that it's 3,000 or 4,000 feet above me. And the elevation change is pretty significant, over a period of a couple of hours. So anyway, I did it for the first time and I was addicted. It's just a awesome camaraderie of people, right? Going to just kind of decompress, do something fun, do something out of their comfort zone, kind of like you did with the exchange, and just have a good time. And so I got addicted to that. I did, 3 or 4 years of that. And then I realized that I was kind of bored with it because, me, I love challenges. So a friend of mine who's very, very good at it now is done the Spartan races. And so he got me involved in that. And long story short, now I'm addicted to Spartan. Spartan is a little more difficult because you get penalized if you don't fulfill your obstacles, and it can weigh on your body. So what is normally as a 5K could turn into a 6 or 7K with extra laps and burpees and everything else that you got to do. So it's just a great challenge. And once you've done it once, you think you're a king, and it's just like, how hard could the next one be? And so I always seem to focus on the mountain courses, Lake Tahoe being one of them. It's always in Squaw Valley every year. And it's, I think, number 5 in the country, hardest courses. And I just love it. I'm going on, I think, year number 7 up there. So
yeah, and just to help people sort of visualize what these obstacles kind of look like. I mean, it's kind of like some of those things you'd see in an army boot camp
exactly.
obstacle course, but other things are like teamwork efforts too, right? You're carrying something together with your teammates or
You can, yes.
fellow racers.
It's typically an independent sport, but you can run in groups and share certain things. But the real competitive guys usually run it by themselves and take it pretty hard if they miss an obstacle. So it's all timed. There are age group limits. There's what we call open session. So if you're new, it's your first time, you can run the open session and not be as penalized at everything. But it's just a great release. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. Keeps me in shape.
And you train and in between races by running mostly, or what do you do? Weightlifting?
And believe it or not, there's not a lot of running. Especially in the mountains. It's straight up. In the mountains, it's yeah. But on the downhill, there is running in between. You can make up time. That's the whole benefit of it. But we do a lot of core training, push-ups, sit-ups, planks, bar hangs, all kinds of stuff like that. And then we do a lot of stuff outside as well on trails, because the trails are never flat. So you got to be able to be, nimble in your movement with your feet. And there's better shoes for that, obviously. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, but it's such a blast.
Yeah, well, I feel like I should do it because you've been bugging me about it, and it's getting over that hump, that first one.
And that was my whole deal. Is just like I had to get over the hump, and now I've done it. It's like it's really not as difficult as it looks. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be, but it's just so rewarding, and it's just a great release from day to day, and you have something to look forward to, right? If you train a little bit. And I know you keep in pretty good shape. You would have no problem doing it. It's really not that difficult. It's just you got to go with somebody that knows it the first couple of times, and you're good.
Yeah. Well, I will stay on that focus of trying to get there myself. I probably do something more at sea level, because I'm a Midwesterner. I might not be able to do the altitude yet, but work up to that. But hey, so you and I we first really got to know each other. It was a weird one for me, because you and Jamie, I didn't really know you that well. And a lot of times with industry things, somebody knows me because of the magazine, my face is in articles and stuff. And you for whatever reason, come up to me at a thing, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm supposed to know these people, but I don't know if I do. And so you just kind of like fake it until I'm sure what's going on. But we're looking for a little extra help doing this CEDIA conference thing. And it was really a spinoff of the old CEDIA management conferences. And we had crossed paths at those, and that's where it all kind of came together. Like, okay, that's why. But you and Jamie really just had a passion for, we need to create this event. We have to have this event come back, which was the management conference. And what was it about those events in those early days of the management conference that you felt like were really important, even with the era of buying group meetings and that sort of thing? I've talked a little bit about the difference between what a buying group is versus a CEDIA or a general industry event that trains on management skills and business. Like what was it about that event that you felt and still feel is so important that we have?
Well, it's the networking, number one. It's getting like-minded people together in the same space, leaving the ego at the door, whether you're small, big, or indifferent, and sharing ideas and sharing successes or failures. And hey, I'm not doing well in here. What can I do to do better? And meeting with your peers to do it, but doing it in an environment that's not, it's called traditional classroom style, right? As you know, I mean, we always did something in a different location every day.
Hmm.
We had different events that people grouped up to be and had competitions and just had a lot of fun. And we just felt like the traditional trade show was just such a grind, having to see all the
Yeah.
vendors and all the meetings with vendors and meetings with, magazines like yourself. And we just needed something different that we could literally just release, get some like-minded people to do the same things we all want to do and not have any discretionary, predeterminations of what it was going to be, and just made it a fun event. And to date, I mean, I still have lots of people that call me about it. I really want CD to bring it back. And if they don't, Jamie and I will.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll do our own thing. But it's one of those things that it was so, as you know, I mean, the planning was crazy, right? We had great guest
Yeah.
speakers. We had great, we did have education there. It's not like we didn't have education,
Hmm.
but it was more focused on the business side than on the flashy gold thing, right? And the technical side. We didn't have vendors. We
Yeah.
didn't have any of that kind of stuff. So that was really the passion behind it.
Yeah, right now for me, as far as networking goes, what fills in the blank is going to these buying group meetings, and they become pretty clicky because it's all folks that are in these things together for a long time, and sometimes it's hard if you don't have a friend in a certain kind of cocktail party setting or whatever to kind of work your way into there and get comfortable talking to folks. When you're going to an event like an exchange or a management conference, you're all kind of in it fresh perspective. There's no expectation of what it is. You just go in with the hope that you're going to meet new people. So I can see that as being a different sort of tone or tenor, that way that event could go. Although the management conferences definitely do a really good job in thought leadership and networking in their own ways. They're just an exclusive group. Not everybody can be in there. So it's different.
Yeah,
Um,
Richard
I,
and
I'm,
Richard
I'm
Gleitz
assuming
was
you
at
see
our
that.
very first one. I'll never forget. He was sitting at my table, and I think the light bulb went off, and he went, "Wow, this is something we could do and really make an impact." And he did.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he'd been doing HTSA for a while, but I don't think he ever had his meetings in like the educational mode. It was mostly just meeting with their
Right.
vendors and working on programs. And then they became training events and networking events. So yeah, I do think he learned a lot from that and applied it to his group, first at HTSA and then ASEAN. Um, you say that some of your passions in kind of running a business are team and culture, maintaining team and culture, and customer communications. You mentioned as well. What are some of the keys, do you think, in terms of what you've experienced with your team and having that proper culture where the employees stay satisfied and want to continue working for the company?
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of a twofold deal. One is that we are family first, right? So when something happens and you're an employee, it's all about family first, right? So if something's going on, it doesn't matter how impactful it's going to be. You're out. You need to go take care of family, take care of the business, take care of your business, your personal business. But more
Uh-huh.
importantly, it's like-minded people that work together and fill a void. So if you're looking for a programmer, you're looking for a project manager, you're looking for whatever, you got to find that right person to fill the void. And I've been notoriously difficult to get forced to bring people on because it doesn't fit the mold. And I mean, it took, I think, 3 years to find our newest project manager. And a year later, he brought a tech with him. So, I mean, we had tons and tons and tons of applications and people referred to us, but it just didn't fit the culture. We like to have fun outside of work, in a work environment or out, on a picnic or a ballpark game or whatever. And we all stand behind each other. We know we each have each other's back. We also, when we hire, we ask not to bring the baggage, right? So you may have been taught one way and got brought. We'll listen to you. We'll listen to some ideas, but we have a pretty good method of doing all of our business, and we're looking for great ideas, but we've got it kind of down to a science now. And so, yeah, culture is huge. Everybody's got to believe in the same goal, and that's a happy customer. The other big thing about our company, even prior to joining TDA, is that we're 100% referral business. Zero advertising, nothing on our vans, no logos, no flyers, nothing. So in a small town like Reno and Lake Tahoe, you can't have a bad name. You can't have one bad job which gets 10 bad customer reviews. I mean, you just can't do it. So, we're kind of at the elevated game, right? That brings a lot of passion, a lot of pride. Once the team sees that you've succeeded in something you didn't think you could succeed at, sky's the limit. And one of our techs even brought up today, or not today, earlier this year, he posed a question at the beginning of the year, and he says, "What can we do to get to the next level?" I mean, he's already seeing it. He knows we can push the envelope. We're pretty high up there, and we deal with a lot of high-end business, but we can always get better. And so for a technician to bring that up, right, to a company and see that passion, that's huge.
And you're in a market, even though you said it's a fairly small community there, that is, it's a pretty wealthy community. Second homes, primary homes. How would you describe? I know it's a resort sort of area with the lake and all, and then you have winter as well as part of that. So, how would you describe your client, your typical kind of client base there?
So, the Reno division of TDA, which we have dropped the DSI name now, we're officially TDA Reno, but we make up in Reno, unlike the other branches, probably a 60-40, 70-30 split of residential commercial. We started off as a commercial integrator 15 or 16 years ago. I've been here 10. I brought the residential side to the business, and that's exploded recently, obviously with COVID and everything locked down. But so our community is kind of a makeup of what we call the Valley. So Carson City, Reno, even all the way out to Fallon. That's just pretty basic, call it $750,000 to $2.5 million homes, nothing crazy. And then we deal with the lake, which can be, relatively wealthy to ultra wealthy, and everything in between. The difference with our company is that we focus a lot on the resort communities like Vail. So North Star is up in Truckee. They're now owned by Vail. Heavenly got bought by Vail. We do a lot of their projects, both commercially and residentially. Do a lot of upkeep and uptake on all of their $1 million condos that get rented out, ski in, ski out condos. And then a lot of property managers sends us a lot of business. So that's kind of our core business. And then we've grown and blown up with electrical contractors being partners of ours, bringing us in early on to some of the real higher end clientele down in the Valley and at the lake. So it's kind of a combination of everything, but we do everything from the bare bones, kind of like you and I's house setup. We save for 10 years and we can afford something to somebody that says how much it's going to cost to do it tomorrow and everything in between.
Right.
But we also have a very, very strong commercial side of the business that focuses on conference rooms, emergency operations centers. One of our largest clients is the Nevada Department of Transportation. They have 40 offices in the state of Nevada, and we have recently outfitted every single one of them with a Teams room. So, we're very blessed to have the staff that can do both, that can handle the residential side and be front and center with a very wealthy individual, but also be very cognizant of a business, right? And that the costs are a little more not as high, right?
Right.
But the quality
you've got You've got a pretty small team there too, as you said. Not looking to grow too fast with the wrong cultural fit. So you've got it's a pretty lean and mean group to be able to do that crossover into both. And what a great I mean, we've all learned that lesson of you've got to have that balance of some commercial when things go a little south on the residential side with the economy, and things can be booming on one side, and for an early days of COVID, commercial probably just dried up for you, as it seemed to do for
It
most.
did. Yeah, we had about
Offices.
$750,000 in the pipeline in February before COVID hit, and probably 90% dropped off.
Right. But the resi picks up,
It
right?
did.
So you get
It
that.
exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after the break, Patrick Hartman and I will discuss how he got into tech and what new products and technologies are at the heart of his home installation projects these days.
Do you want superior smart home automation at a great value? Shelly Wi-Fi Relays by Allterco Robotics cover DC to line voltage, allowing you to control lights, outlets, appliances, garage doors, pumps, and much more. There are Shelly sensors and power measurement devices to help you measure temperature, humidity, lux, or motion, and electrical consumption from single wire to 3-phase with neutral. You can use Shelly with a licensed driver for Control 4, Elon, or other premium systems, as well as your customer's existing hub, voice assistant, or any platform that accepts REST, MQTT, or CoAP. Shelly can make IoT very easy. Available now at Blackwire, City Electric Supply, and Worthington, or at shellyusa.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Patrick Hartman, General Manager for Technology Design Associates in Reno, Nevada. Patrick, I like to go way back and talk to folks about what they were like as a kid, how they got into tech. What were some of the earliest times when you were kind of interested in things that maybe turned into technology, whether it's being into gadgets and putting stuff together, or how early would you say you kind of knew you liked technology or stuff related to like what you do today?
Yeah, so I've always been a huge music fan. I always grew up, my parents always had the albums playing on Saturdays and Sundays. And, we, when we could afford it, we could go see a concert or watch it on TV or something. So music has always been in my blood. All my uncles were pretty heavy rockers in the 60s and 70s, and they loved their music. So whenever we visited them, it was comparable, and we loved the music and share it. But I had an opportunity in college, my third year in college, to go to an internship in the Bay Area to work for the Good Guys, the big box store. So equivalent to you would have been like Circuit City, but it was a West Coast version of it. And so I was working in the service department with a good friend of our family that hired me. And I loved it so much that I stayed. So I was seeing things that came in that were broke, right? It was a service center. You break a receiver or CD player, whatever came in, you got it fixed. And we were the group that brought it in, fixed it, and shipped it out. Well, about 5 years into that venture, our CEO at the time elected to open up, I think to date, it's probably one of the very first custom installation divisions of a big box store. So we had a home installation division, and I got an opportunity to help start that back in 96. So I was in 91 is when I started with the Good Guys. And in 96, we got an opportunity to do that. So we did a trial run in a pretty conservative area in Sacramento, had a long commute 4 days a week, hot weather, hot attics. It was not fun. But it was a proven theory that we could go and teach sales counselors in these big box stores how to present a home installation, and then have us come in and bid on it and then run it through the company. A name you know very well, Eric Bodley, was a consultant that taught all of our sales counselors. And I traveled with him for almost a year, going in and teaching sales counselors how to sell in-home installation. So him and I have been friends and known each other for a long, long time. And then in 2001, I think we had 20. Good Guys had 22 stores when I started, and I left. There were 78 stores. So we were blowing up stores and building stores in between that, starting them all over the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, LA, out to Vegas. And home installation became pretty big too. But they decided to go a different route, and they got bought by can't remember the name of the company, computer company. Anyway, I left in 01 and went to work for Randy Stearns at Engineer Environments.
Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah.
that. That's
So
interesting.
he recruited one of my old bosses at the Good Guys, who was a operations guy and a tech guy by trade, hired him, and then he recruited me in 01. So I went to work for Randy for a couple of years, and that's what moved me from the Bay Area to the Lake Tahoe area.
Okay.
So that's kind of the early days.
Where did you grow up, though?
So I was born and raised in Topeka, Kansas, not too far from you. Lived a little stint in St. Louis. Had a stint in Little Rock, Arkansas, freshman year in high school. I went to a lot of schools. My dad moved around with the railroad, so I went to 3 high schools in 4 years, and then ended up in the University of Arizona College. So I was a Midwest boy, born and raised, a lot of family back there. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a trip this summer to go see my brother in Omaha. And that's right, I did have a stint in Omaha. I just don't want to admit it. But he's still there, and I'm going to go see him and his kids and his wife, and we're going to spend some time back seeing family. So it's going to be fun.
So you bring us up to speed with working for engineered environments, and that brings you to Tahoe, Reno area. What was that as an extension of engineered environments at that point? Or
yeah, they had about $3 or $4 million of business up here, and had been up here for a long time. And one of their senior project managers had left, or was going to start going back in the electrical business. So I had the opportunity to either pick going to Tahoe, or Randy at the time was looking at opening up Hawaii. So I elected to come up to Tahoe, and 2 years in, he blew up in Hawaii and decided he was going to kind of dwindle down Tahoe and work it remotely. So my wife and I stayed here and kind of built our house and had a great time. And I've worked for 3 companies since then. A very small community, so it didn't take long to find work here. And then I was recruited by a company out of Palm Desert that opened a branch doing a lot of work for Toll Brothers nationwide. And so we had a branch there, and I worked for them for a couple of years, getting Toll Brothers in Reno. They just started, back in the early 2000s. And then had a couple of year speed bump with a company that our DSI, was with them 10 years or have been. Our owner decided to retire, and he sold out to a large commercial fire alarm company, because that's the other half of the business. Right. And so once that happened, then I started looking. That's when I met Ron, and Ron and I chatted about it over a period of about a year and a half. And it just made sense. It was the right fit. He was trying to break out into different states and have different branches. And so here we are. We've been there. It's been 4 years now, I think, a little over 4 years since we got acquired by Ron's company.
And has that arrangement made it? You seem to be very entrepreneurial within your branch there, and can operate fairly independently as the general manager there, but yet you have oversight from Ron, who is out in the field, traveling from location to location and overseeing the whole thing. What are some of the advantages there of that kind of parent organization, so to speak, that Ron has working with you versus not really being there in person all the time, kind of on your case? Are you able to be independent and also have some of the pressures taken off of you by not being the owner? Yeah,
there's a lot of good parts to it. Number one is we run independent. We're a well-oiled machine before he even acquired us. So he didn't have a lot to worry about. He knew we had a good track record, good revenue, good client base, and a good environment. So he didn't really have to babysit it like he had to on some of the others that he built up from the ground up. The other difference is that we do a lot of commercial. They do zero commercial, or very little in the other areas. So he was kind of looking to me for my expertise to help run this and do it. It's a sharing, right? So we have 6 general managers. We're sharing information, stuff I've done on the residential and commercial side versus the smaller stuff they're doing. And they do have some big stuff up there too. So it's great. Now, what Ron's, concept has always been is he has what he calls essential service. So we have 6 different disciplines that we rely on for them to help us, so we don't have to do it locally: purchasing, accounting, engineering, the administrative side. So those are just 4 of them that we use. We do also have some marketing that's happening. And so they have an entire group that's kind of their own branch or their own division that services and hands us the back end support we need. So all we're doing is running a business and running the jobs, and I have to work about everything locally.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. Now, are there you're still dealing with some of the challenges that everyone's dealing with supply chain and all that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you're not necessarily doing the purchasing yourself, but you're still having probably some delays and things with your projects because you're you have to fill in gaps when things aren't available, or just delayed getting to you. So
Well, we have a
how have
lot
you
of
been
buying power
continuing?
too, because we have 6 branches and a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. So it's one purchasing engine that's imploding on large companies like Lutron and Control 4 and Crestron, and have a little more buying power. So we're able to use that to our advantage, right? To make a little
Yes.
more margin, and then also stockpile stuff now, which is, I never thought I'd ever say that again, because I'm not a big believer of keeping inventory, but this day and age you have to.
I know everything went just in time, and that was the key to success for everybody.
Yes.
And then now it's just the opposite, where it's like, if you can buy it, get it now
Yeah.
and hold on to
So
it,
it's been
and hope that it
unique.
doesn't get.
It's been very unique.
Yeah.
And so, I think our division brought a lot to TDA, and I know that TDA has given us a lot as well on processes. We've been working very heavily the last 3 years to really improve processes company wide. There was just a lot of, this branch does it one way, this branch does it one way. And we were kind of the anomaly, and it was very difficult for us to change to some of the processes, but it makes a lot more sense, becomes a little more efficient. And, we feel like more of a team now too.
And so you mentioned when we were talking about topics of conversation about charging for proposals, and that's an important thing for you. So explain, is that something you brought to the table, or is it something that the other groups said this is the way we do it, we should all do it this way? Or
so,
is that one example?
I've been teaching it with CEDIA for years in the project management track about, if you want to be successful, you need to pick and choose your clients. And the only way you're going to do that is to figure out whether they're committed or not committed. And one of the best ways to do that, and Randy was notorious, and he was very good at it from back in the engine environment days, was, if you're going to have us design the system, you're going to pay for it. It's that simple. You're not getting a freebie. You don't get a free proposal that you can just go and just, avoid my calls and walk down the street, hand somebody the proposal and say, here's my bid. Can you beat it? I mean, back in the day, that's what people did. And I to this date, I don't know how people still do it. I mean, if you're just getting started, you're hungry and you're doing whatever you got to do. I get that. But at some point you got to put some comfort level and some, have some comfort level that your staff can handle whatever you propose. And so probably 12 or 13 years ago, I started doing what I call a design services agreement, where, first of all, it's a gut check. Ron and I are very similar in that way. We can gut check it when we meet a client. We know whether they're real or they're not real. In Reno, it's even easier because we're 100% referral business. So I got the call because somebody else was happy. So the chance, goes way up. The percentage of closure ratio goes way up in that perspective. But when I'm on the fence, or it's a builder calling me, and my first question is, who else is bidding on the project? If you're calling me because you want me to be number 2 and number 3 on the bid, I'm not interested. If I'm going to be working with you and never meet the client, I'm not interested. Like, it's a relationship thing. And so if a builder's calling me, or designer's calling me, or electrical contractors calling me, it's because I'm referred and they want me to do the business no matter the cost. And we'll work with the client. We're very good at value engineering and meeting a budget. But I'm not doing design for free. I'm just not doing it.
Right.
And so it becomes a gut check, right? So if it's just a existing client, you're doing some updates for it, you're not having them sign that. It's a done deal. They're already a client. It's just another changeover or refresh of their system or whatever. There's very little chance they're going to go somewhere else. But with a brand new client that I don't know, it's a gut check. And so if it doesn't feel right, they immediately get a design contract and say, if you want to proceed, it's X amount of dollars to design it. You'll get X, Y, and Z for that price. And if you decide to use our company to do the work, we'll apply that money you just paid us as a down payment toward your contract. So it's a win-win, right? It's not, you're paying money for the design and you're paying for the design, right?
Right.
So it's good money spent over bad. So it's worked out very well. And all of a sudden, people that learn to do that way, and it's scary. If you've never done it before, it's not easy to come to a client and say, sorry, we can't proceed without money. They're like, well, I got to talk to my wife, or I got to do this, or I got to do that, or I'm waiting on another guy to look at my job. Well, when you're ready, let us know. And 9 times out of 10, once you get it in your vocabulary and into your elevator pitch with your clients, it's a no-brainer. If they're going to sign it right there and not have to say, I need to talk to my wife or let me think about it, you were part of the business exchange when we talked about trust, the trusted advisor, right? That trusted advisor is exactly who we are. If they don't trust you, they're not going to sign the deal. They're not going to sign the design contract. And so you've got to earn their trust. And so that's been very popular. I mean, it pushed my closure ratio from 55, 60% to 90 overnight. Wow. And to date, we don't even put it in the computer as a prospect until we know that we can either have the signed contract or it's an existing client. We know we're going to get the work.
Is there a way for these clients who just have absolutely no idea what it is that you do, except that they want some home entertainment stuff? And I guess you're dealing with referrals who they at least have a friend that has something that they're comparing it to. So they're starting from a little bit of information there. But is there a way to give them sort of a ballpark budget number without having to go through the design stage and get that money up front? So they at least just know, hey, it's where we start is around this for this type of a project.
Yeah, I mean,
X dollar amount.
Anybody that's been in the business long enough has a pretty good idea. If you're doing the same general types of systems over and over again, or call it even 6 times a year, like a lighting control system, you have a pretty good idea. You can walk into a project, see how many lighting loads there are, see how many motorized shades, and have a pretty good budget. I'll throw out things like, it's going to be between $1,200 and $1,800 per window for a motorized shade. Does that sound about right to you? Like, you got to get their commitment. And so they'll start adding numbers in their head. You don't need to go to budget phase. But this whole project could be $30,000 to $60,000, depending on what you're looking for. But without knowing specifics and us going into design phase, I can't guarantee you a price. So it really comes to what we call a trial close. Frank White is very, very good at it. Him and I kind of talked about it in a couple of our classes we've taught over the years. The trial close is a good way to find out whether they're your client or not. Asking those questions. Because, every customer is going to ask, well, what do you think? You just walked the house. How much do you think it's going to cost?
Right.
Well, first of all, I say we don't spell out numbers day one. I said if I had to give you a rough estimate, it's X between 25 and 50,000. But there are so many unknowns, and the right way to do it, and the only way we'll do it with our company, is to go into design phase. And they'll usually appreciate that. And I'll say, look, we'll show you other clients' homes. You can come into our design center. We'll show you drawings. We'll show you paperwork. So we're educating. And that's really the difference between us and a lot of integrators, is they're like, no, you don't want to spend the money, you're out. We'll spend the time and educate them so that they're not getting bad information from other integrators. Or worst case, from a big box store.
Right. So you're always hearing about after the project's service agreements and that sort of thing. How is the company handling that these days? As far as some I've heard just even recently in a conversation where it's the agreement is your first year of follow-up service is basically warranted, quote unquote. It's like it's free. And after that, then you look at continuing service agreements where you show this is what we've done to maintain your system this past year. So you know what you're going to be paying for. Do you have a system for that yet in terms of service agreements or after the installation, follow-up?
Yeah, we've been doing it for
service?
years on the commercial side. It's very easy to draw up a service agreement with an 8 to 5 business, if you will, or 7 to 5 business.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. They pick do you want 24 hours, 48 hours, 72-hour response? You're going to pay X amount of money, travel, et cetera, et cetera. So that's easy. The residential world is a little more difficult. We as a company have recently gone from a 1 year to a 6-month warranty after the sale of anything we've provided and or installed. If it's owner furnished, obviously it's not covered. And then we are in the process of launching what we're calling a client care membership. So they are allowed to choose between, I think, 3 or 4 plans to quote unquote monitor the system, do remote reboots, work with you remotely, 24/7 response on the phone. And if you're in the upper tier, you basically bump to the top. If there's a service call, we got to roll a truck, you're first in line. So I know that's high level, but that's kind of the general sense of it.
No, that gives me a good idea.
It's a peace of mind versus a all holds, bar, right? You're going to roll a truck no matter what. I'm paying you X amount, a lot of money per month. If I need problems, you're rolling. So it's everything in between. Typically, most clients are pretty comfortable with an initial 6-month response. And because we're very responsive in our service side, and the guys that installed it are also our servicers, they've already got to know our team. They're already comfortable with them. So I think the response alone kind of sets their mind aside and eases their concerns, if you will, after we're done with the job. And it's kind of the same way if you ever have a remodel done in your home. You're like, okay, yeah, you're gone, your work's done. Now what if I need service? What happens? Well, we're no different boat than they are when they sign up with us. So we're in the process of launching that campaign right now. Ron's had that in place for quite a few years in some fashion, but we're revising that right now to make sense company-wide. And it's something we're going to see, hopefully, a lot of recurring revenue on.
Oh, great. That's the key, isn't it? To create the value in the company for the down the road part of it. And so to wrap up, I really want to touch on some product and tech trends and see where you're at as far as those go, because sometimes I talk to a company and they're right on top of the things we talk about in magazines, which is always the new shiny thing. What's the next trend? And that can lately run the gamut from just installing lighting fixtures to really trying to figure out what this health and wellness category kind of is. And they tie together a little bit at times. But what would you say some of the either product trends or tech trends are that you are sort of embracing that may be newer than your traditional home entertainment technologies that we've been doing for years?
So we started entertaining and diving into voice a couple of years ago, right at the end of 2020, when Josh AI had done their big announcement and that stuff. So we dove into that pretty heavy. Have a couple guys that have them in their homes. We have one in our conference room. We were worried during COVID about touchless conference rooms. We were talking about how we're going to do that. So voice has become pretty big. We're not deploying it a lot yet. It's still kind of in its infancy for us, and it's not an inexpensive solution for a customer.
Sure.
So that's a give and take. We are looking at getting into the fixture business, though. I think some of our projects, actually, we've already sold some fixtures, but that's something we're entertaining for another revenue stream. We're all over the lighting and shading. That every part of that is a huge part of our business right now, and that's very profitable. Discipline. So I would say the only other one, the health and wellness is tough. I agree with you. It's just, I don't know how many years we've been talking about it. It's hard to kind of get your head wrapped around it and figure out a way that's going to work within your realm of what you already do and what you can offer. So I'm very interested in it. And I have a few friends that are pursuing it pretty heavily. And so I'm kind of following them closely on it, but it's nothing we've dove into significantly.
Right. Well, and as you said, where you're located and in a climate where in houses, you probably have a lot of big windows and sort of that sort of thing with the shades. That's got to be a huge business opportunity for you alone, let alone the lighting and the lighting control. So just being able to be the shading integration provider alone is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, the networking and the remote servicing of networks is always going to be huge. I think it's just going to explode even more. That is never going to slow down. And we dove into that pretty heavy a couple of years before COVID, and it's just we literally don't have any new client that is not on the system. So we have eyes on it. We can reboot things and be proactive instead of reactive.
Right. And how have the entertainment technologies portion of your projects evolved? Have you seen more dedicated theaters come back into style as especially COVID hit and people were spending more time at home? I've heard a little bit more of those dedicated spaces coming back in, not like huge numbers, but it wasn't really happening much at all for a while. It was mostly just multi-purpose spaces for TVs and even projectors. So what are you seeing there in your area?
In our area, we don't see a lot of dedicated theaters. It's usually a multi-purpose, great room, family room, bonus room, whatever you want to call it, where obviously a lot more of the family staying at the house together and spending more time together. So they're wanting it to be more family time. Dedicated rooms, we just haven't done a lot. I can't tell you that it's probably been 7 or 8 years since we've done anything of any significant value. We actually I take that back. We did 1 or 2 in the last couple of years that were pretty significant, but it was pretty rare. Usually it's the integrated, LCR sound bars or some fashion, custom designed speakers for an environment that has to be aesthetically pleasing, right? It's not a dedicated theater room. That's becoming more of the norm than anything.
And in an area with the climate that you have, is outdoor a really big category
Absolutely.
for you? Outdoor?
Yeah, we do a lot of outdoor audio. We've done, I don't know, half a dozen in the last year or so that were a pretty significant size. A lot of people are moving their indoors, outdoors. So we're doing a lot of outdoor TVs and music specifically. But even more than that, you got to extend the Wi-Fi too, right? So, so that becomes big on a bigger lot. So it's becoming pretty popular.
And what about security? It seems like with the high net worth folks that they're probably wanting that. Do you do most of the security stuff, or do you outsource that to specific?
So surveillance, we do 100%. Anytime surveillance is needed, we absolutely we're all over that, both commercial and residentially. On the intrusion and fire alarm security, we subcontract all of that work. We don't pretend to know what we're doing with that, but we also integrate with their products. So with Control4 as an example, we'll tell them to use a specific keypad so that their interface operates with it. And then on a case-by-case basis, we deal with access control. So we do access control on a very slim basis. If it's a guaranteed client, a guaranteed property, and we have one big, large client, we're doing a lot of their outlying properties. We're doing a fair amount for them, and there's some new integration and new technology built into that. It's not our bread and butter, but for the right client, we definitely do it.
Well, that gives me a really good sense of what you guys are up to. And I know that having talked to Ron, he has big ideas for the future for the overall company and all the branches. So I envy your location, your opportunity to be independent, but still have like a kind of combined effort there. The way it's all set up, it seems like a good situation for you. And I hope you get to enjoy some summertime there in that beautiful area. Thanks so much, Patrick, for taking the time out to chat.
Yeah,
today.
you bet. It's a little hot here right now, and I'll find a Midwest track for you. I'll come visit you. That give me a reason to get out of the mountains.
There we go. Let's do it. I want to get committed to that. You got to hold my feet to it, so I don't.
We're not getting younger, bro. We got to get out there.
I know. I'm feeling good right now. I was a little bit dinged up there for a while. I was kind of hesitant. the joint pain starts hitting your elbows and stuff, and I had to pull away from some of the weights. And
Yep.
now I'm starting to actually finally recover, so I'm ready for a new challenge.
That's awesome.
So let's do it.
Great talking to you, Jeremy.
Great talking to you, Patrick. Patrick Hartman is General Manager for Technology Design Associates, TDA, in Reno, Nevada. You can learn more about his company at tdareno.com. That wraps up today's show. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast on your preferred platform and consider rating or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Friday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, lighting specialist to Residential Tech Talk.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.